John Armstrong, known to everyone who knew him simply as Jack, was born in 1921 in Cardiff, Wales. Cardiff in 1921 was a city that had grown with extraordinary speed over the preceding century, driven almost entirely by the coal trade that flowed out of the South Wales valleys and through Cardiff's docks into the world. By 1921, the city's population had reached over 200,000 people, a remarkable figure for a place that had fewer than 3,000 residents a century before. The docks at Cardiff Bay were among the busiest in the British Empire. Ships came and went around the clock. Coal was loaded, goods were unloaded, and a city of terraced streets, chapels, corner shops, and working men's clubs had grown up around the trade that made it all possible. But by 1921, the certainties of that world were beginning to crack. The First World War had ended 3 years earlier, and South Wales, like so much of Britain, was carrying its dead. The coal industry, which had underpinned life across the region for generations, was entering a period of severe contraction. Unemployment was rising. Strikes and labour disputes ran through the Welsh valleys like fault lines. For the working-class families of Cardiff, life in the early 1920s was a matter of making do, of holding on to what you had, looking after your own, and trusting that hard work and community would carry you through. It was into this world, practical, tight-knit, and deeply Welsh, that Jack Armstrong was born. The details of Jack's early life are not extensively documented in the public record. What is known is that he grew up in Cardiff, lived there his entire life, and built his working life in the city he had known from childhood. He was a family man. He had a daughter named Jean, who grew up in Cardiff alongside him. Jean would later marry and become Jean Heath. By the 1970s, Jack Armstrong was working as a taxi driver in Cardiff. He was employed by Castle Private Hire Taxi Company, based on Westgate Street in the city centre, a firm that operated across Cardiff and the surrounding area. Jack was approaching his late 50s. He was a working man, doing a working man's job, picking up fares, driving people where they needed to go, clocking in and out, going home at the end of the shift. It was honest, steady work, the kind that sustains a city and goes largely unnoticed by everyone except the people who depend on it. Cardiff in October 1979 was a different city from the Cardiff Jack had been born into nearly 6 decades earlier. The coal trade that had built the city was gone. The great export docks had closed, and the valleys to the north had been hollowed out by pit closures and unemployment. Cardiff was now the capital city of Wales, designated so in 1955, and it was finding a new identity for itself. Part civic centre, part commercial hub, part post-industrial community, still adjusting to what it had lost. The 1970s in Britain had been a turbulent decade. Strikes, rising prices, and political upheaval had tested communities across the country. By October of 1979, the country was entering a period of significant change. But for ordinary working people in Cardiff, men who drove taxis, worked in factories, and raised families in terraced houses, the basic shape of daily life remained the same. You got up, you went to work, you came home. Friday the 5th of October, 1979 began as an ordinary working day for Jack Armstrong. He was 58 years old. During the afternoon, a telephone call came into Castle Cabs on Westgate Street. A man was on the line asking for a taxi. He gave his name as Mr. Williams. No first name, no address beyond the pickup point. He wanted to be picked up from the Fairwater pub on St Fagan's Road in the Fairwater district of Cardiff, then to the west of the city centre, and taken to Cowbridge, a market town approximately 15 miles west of Cardiff in the Vale of Glamorgan. Jack took the job. He drove out to Fairwater and collected the passenger. At approximately 1:30 in the afternoon, he radioed into the Castle Cab's control room, a routine check confirming he had picked up the fare and was on his way. It was a brief, ordinary call. Nothing about it was unusual. Jack did not radio in again after that. As the afternoon wore on, Jack did not return his cab. He did not contact the firm. He did not arrive home. The hours passed. Later that same evening, a resident in the area of Trios, a small village outside Bridgend, nearly 20 miles west of Cardiff, called the police. A car had been left on a secluded road near the Waterton Industrial Estate. It was an unusual place to leave a vehicle, and unusual enough that the local resident thought to report it. Police attended. The car was Jack Armstrong's taxi. Blood was found inside the vehicle. Jack was not there. In the period shortly before the car had been reported, eyewitnesses in the area had noticed a man near the vehicle. He appeared to be cleaning the inside of the car. He was described as being around 20 years old. When he noticed he was being observed, he stopped what he was doing and left the area on foot. A search was launched. Officers combed the surrounding countryside through the night and into the following days. Jack Armstrong could not be found. On the 8th of October, 1979, 3 days after he had last been heard from, members of the public discovered a body on Cowbridge Common, a stretch of open land near the town of Cowbridge, just over 5 miles from where the taxi had been abandoned. It was Jack Armstrong. He had sustained catastrophic head injuries. He had been robbed and beaten to death. His body had been lying on the open common for 3 days. He was 58 years old. South Wales Police launched one of the largest murder investigations the force had conducted at that time. Hundreds of statements were taken. Exhibits from the taxi and from Cowbridge Common were collected and examined. Detectives worked to establish the identity of the man who had telephoned Castle Cabs that Friday afternoon and given his name as Mr. Williams. Checks were run against the name. Men bearing the surname Williams were contacted and interviewed. None of them could be connected to the booking or to Jack Armstrong. The name Mr. Williams, it became apparent to investigators, was almost certainly false, a name chosen to give nothing away, to leave no trail, to make the caller impossible to trace. He had given no first name. He had given no verifiable address. He had left nothing behind except a name that led nowhere. The young man seen cleaning the inside of the taxi on the evening of the 5th of October was never formally identified. Despite the scale of the investigation and the large number of statements taken, no arrest was ever made. No suspect was ever formally charged. The case ran cold. Over the following decades, South Wales Police's Specialist Crime Review Unit returned to the case on multiple occasions. In December 2020, the unit announced a further review, citing advances in DNA analysis. Exhibits from the original investigation, including items recovered from inside the taxi, were resubmitted for forensic examination in the hope that a DNA profile could be recovered and matched. A Welsh-language television documentary called The Murder of Jack Armstrong was produced for the S4C channel and broadcast in October 2022. It followed the South Wales Police Major Crime Review Unit as they worked through the evidence. Following the broadcast, new information was received from members of the public. Investigators stated that while the information was welcome, they needed more. Jack's daughter Jean Heath had been a tireless advocate for her father throughout her adult life. She appeared in the documentary and spoke openly about the moment she heard the news of her father's death in 1979. She said she had gone into complete shock, that she had needed a sedative, that she had been traumatized. She expressed one hope above all others, that the truth would finally be found, so that her father could be put to rest properly. Jean passed away before that day came. In January 2026, South Wales Police issued a fresh public appeal for information, the latest in a long series of appeals stretching back across nearly half a century. Detective Chief Inspector Matt Davies acknowledged the passing of Jean Heath and described her as a real advocate over the years for justice for Jack. He appealed directly to anyone carrying knowledge of what happened that Friday afternoon to do the right thing and come forward, noting that if the killer was still alive, they had been living with the knowledge of what they did for almost 47 years. No one has ever been convicted of the murder of John Jack Armstrong. The case remains officially open. Hello everyone, thank you for listening and drop any feedback below. I would love to hear your thoughts and hope to see you again right here on Cold Case UK.